Today's AskReddit post. Parents of bullies. When did you realize your child was a bully and how did you react? Oh boy, this is gonna be a good one. Let's get started. You should know that one of the major forming factors for bullies can be parents paying no attention at all. So the replies you get may be limited by that. I completely agree. It's not a valid excuse, but it is a reason. Every bully I've met had troubles at home. It wasn't always parents not paying attention. Sometimes it was toxic parents paying too much attention, so they got criticized to the extent they took it out at school. Bullying is often more of a dysfunctional attempt at socializing than it is real sadism or manipulation. It depends on which bullying problems you're looking at, of course. But lots of it, like harassment, teasing, targeting peers that are perceived as weaker, is actually an attempt to force camaraderie with others by creating an us versus them environment. I know this is about bullying, but I can't stop thinking about the parallels between your explanation and current forces in the racial political climate. Is it really that simple? And the grown-ups are still just playing out these childish games? Bullies? Hun. Yep, it can get even more weirdly simple if you dig into other dysfunctional behaviors that almost everything links to either deficient or aberrant empathy skills. But you've definitely picked up on a piece of wisdom. Often when people are helped out of things like white supremacist groups, cults, or other insular groups that tend to lash out, they will talk about their real motivation to be there as a need for purpose and camaraderie. Us versus them is an intense force on the human psyche. You can see it in simpler stuff like PC versus console or skis versus snowboard. It creates that weird feeling of belonging. But the feeling is artificial. The other members of the KKK or whatever will definitely stab you in the back, and you sort of know it. That's why groups with less trustworthy members get more and more violent and partisan. The only way to get that sweet belonging high is to keep turning up the unifying hatred volume. All I know is that my wife is a teacher, and when she tells parents about their kid being mean, or a bully, or anything bad, they just say poop like he doesn't do that at home. He's a good boy, you must be lying. All the other kids are lying. The parents at her school are affluent and can do no wrong. Parents, please listen to your children's teachers. Edit. Wow. Thank you everyone. There have been some great discussions and shared experiences. I can't believe how many responses this comment got. Thank you all. They always act good at home. Even the worst ones do that. That is actually an interesting response to me. I'm a teacher and my students listen to me. But my own children are absolute wildlings and freak out and destroy everything. Thing is, other adults sing their praises. Could it be that bullies are the opposite? That they listen to their parents and play nice but not to other adults? Just a thought. I'd love to hear other people's opinions. I was that kid. I was an angel at school and a terror at home. The way I've heard it described is that kids feel that it's safe to fall apart at home. They know that their parents love them no matter how they act. So after holding it together all day and being good, they get home and let their emotions flow more freely. To me, that makes a lot of sense. Very much this. It's like business clothes. You look all good and pressed, and then after 8 hours, the front clasp is digging in and the shirt keeps riding up and you've had it, you're going home and putting on sweatpants or less. Several answers here are along the lines of one of the things that makes a bully is lack of attention. My parents love me more than life itself, and yet I was still a bully in my elementary years. I couldn't tell you why exactly, other than just saying autism, which is no excuse. My parents did not allow the teachers to use that as an excuse, and made sure I was appropriately punished, and I am so grateful for that. Anyway, most autistic children have the one thing they obsess over. For me, it was Garfield the cat. Every phone call from the principal, one Garfield thing was taken away, and it broke my parents' hearts. But it worked. Edit. I consulted my mother to see if she had any insight as to the reason. Best guess is lack of regard for other people's feelings. Edit 2. Please stop recommending RM's origin to me. If I wanted to ruin my childhood, I'd already be subscribed to that subreddit. I have a disorder on the autism spectrum called Asperger's. I too have something I obsess over, which is coins. IDKY. Mine was rocks. When my parents took me to restaurants, I'd spend the last 20-30 minutes looking through the rock beds for good ones. Probably collected 1,000 by the time I got to high school. In my entire life, there was only one good rock that I saw but didn't get. I was in basic training and I knew that if one of my drill sergeants saw me bend down to pick up a rock, then it would be the end of me. I knew in that moment I'd never forget that rock. I haven't forgotten it yet anyway. What did it look like? Thank you for asking. It was flat on 2 sides, roughly triangular on the remaining 3 with the longest side bent slightly inward. The edges were smooth. The thing that really made it special was the way it seemed to take in light. It didn't reflect quite as much as it should, like it was just a bit offset from everything around us. A bunch of friends and myself were sitting around one day talking about school and we got to the subject of being bullied. As I sat there listening, I realized that I didn't have a story to tell. This is when I also realized I was the bully. Honestly, most bullied person I know also bullied weaker people at some point. For me, the bottom line of bullying is simply show them you bite back. Once it's learned for good. Once in 4th grade a kid was roasting me on the playground and I didn't really care until he called my mom a troll, then I just unleashed a barrage on him. LMAO. Luckily that was the only time I lashed out at someone like that. Hey, your mum's a troll. Big words for someone who has chicken on his feet. Not a bully, but I know I got one of my old bullies hard when, on suggestion from one of my cousins, to invite said bullies to my birthday party. 7 total. Only one showed, and proceeded to introduce the kid as the poop head who beats me up every day, even called him that in front of his mom. I know at some point the kid's mom had a discussion with my mom. I'll ask if she remembers how it went, and after about 20 minutes they up and left. Never had an issue with him afterwards. Update: talk to mom. She doesn't remember the exact words that were used, but the conversation was basically bully's mom saying I was being rude to my guest and was using foul language I shouldn't use. To which my mom proceeded to tell her all the crap this kid and his little circle of goons did to me. My mom was actually going to pull me aside and show the lady the bruises I had on me from him and the other bullies when she decided to leave. I thought this post was going in a way different direction when you started with, I got one of my old bullies hard. Step bully, I'm stuck. Edit. THNX for my first internet awards. I am weirdly proud about this. Love you guys. That okay, Step Vic. Let me do a GU. My sister was a bully. She bullied me and my brother and also kids in school. My parents ignored it. I think they were a little afraid of her. Your parents afraid of your sister? WTF, was she some sort of underage Navy SEAL or SMTH? Kids with behavior issues can get incredibly aggressive and violent at unexpected times. Exactly like one of my sisters. She's unassuming and petite, dresses very well and is extremely polite in public. However, if you are alone with her and can't really get away or have some sort of family connection, she's absolutely vile and spiteful. She has no shame and will do anything to intimidate, belittle, or badger you to do or say what she wants you to, and has gotten violent multiple times with every member of our family, all with family as witnesses, all largely unprovoked. The number one crime you can commit in her mind is defend yourself at all, and her favorite thing in the world is to watch you get upset by something she says. She's the worst kind of person, and she intentionally designed her style and demeanor to hide how aggressive and confrontational she is. She basically runs my mom's life, ruined my relationship with my mom for years, and scared my sister from even trying to be in our house when we were kids. Me and my sister are nothing like her, at all, and neither of my parents or relatives are like her either. She just was born without a link to human empathy. Your sister sounds so much like mine. She is good looking, very manipulative and extremely good at playing the nice kind woman in public, but she has made family life hell. She made up stories about our parents and told anyone who would listen. She's 8 years older than me and we had to share a bedroom and I would stay awake all night rather than fall to sleep and wait for what she would do to me. Despite her claiming our parents were abusive, I was always the one always covered in bruises and timid. The only time she ever really showed any care was when I was bullied at school and she kind of stepped in. Probably because the kids involved were way younger than her and also easy to bully. Our immediate family all know what she's like and have all suffered from her. Minor injuries and hurt feelings up to broken bones. but in public everyone thinks she's Mrs. Perfect. Not until he started 5th grade. He was super close to his grandpa, wife's dad, and when he died it destroyed him and his behavior changed. Few weeks after the funeral this kid's mom called my wife saying things my kid was saying and doing. Not the school, mind you. We had a parent-teacher conference days before she called. Teacher didn't say a word. We talked to him. Your first reaction is to protect your kid and not accept it. But we can tell by the way he was reacting to the discussion. We arranged a playdate of sorts. We monitor it now. He talks to a therapist too. He's a good kid, just makes terrible decisions. As a father of 4 we've been on the other end of it as well, and usually if the kid's an arsehole so is one or both of the parents. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree at times. Usually if the kid's an arsehole so is one or both of the parents. I understand this may seem like comfortable logic to hold on to, but honestly don't. My parents were fine people, and my brother ended up stealing from all of us and selling drugs. Oh sure, my parents weren't perfect, but I managed to have a very successful career and retire early. Have an amazing network of wonderful friends. My middle sister ended up in jail constantly and doing drugs. My grandfather is still paranoid as duck, at almost 90, because she stole so much stuff from him. I've no answer for why she ended up like that, and I ended up retired at 45 on a beach in Florida. Just so different. It's so strange. My oldest sister is in her 50s and lives with my mom. Hasn't worked in 25 years. Who the duck knows? Jail and drugs. Florida. Not sure who has it worse here. I joke about Florida all you want. This morning I took my 4-year-old out on the 2-person kayak through the mangroves and saw a couple dolphins when we got out to the bay. Spent a couple hours paddling around, then came back home and jumped in our pool. Tomorrow we'll spend the day on the beach. A lot of responses here are relying on the trope that bullies are that way because they have low self-esteem, have been bullied themselves, etc. And while I'm in no way discounting people's lived experiences, research debunks this pretty thoroughly. Most bullies aren't sad, they don't have low self-esteem, and they aren't victims. They have very high self-esteem, feel powerful, and use that power against others. Bullies bully because it's easy, they like it, and it works. I'm a bullied kid, almost 20 at the time of writing this. You are very right about the kind of person a bully actually is, but I also would like to add that the home situation plays a factor. My bully came from a single father and, from what I've heard, his home situation wasn't the best. It certainly can play a factor, but the supposedly typical broken home bully thing is much less common than predatory kids sensing weakness and exploiting it for their amusement or social standing. Anecdotally, almost all of the bullies I remember from school were the popular rich kids. Bully, tri-legitimate psychopath, stepdaughter. It's an ongoing battle to keep all other children and animals safe. I hardly sleep and I don't sit down. Could you elaborate? Sorry you're going through that. You know, hurting animals and other children, constantly doing something devious, manipulative, or dangerous, callous and unemotional, doesn't care about a single thing, smears fesses all over everything, enjoys physical punishment, sadism, encourages classmates to cut themselves, threatens people, stealing money from anyone's purse or wallet and forges signatures, hides needles and pins in people's bedding and pillows. Definitely an opportunist. There is no sparkle in her eye. Last week her aunt trusted her to hold her 6-month-old. For whatever reason, the baby ended up thudding face down on the hardwood floor. No guilt or remorse shown. No apologies. Thank God the baby is okay. No amount of therapy, medicine, or institutionalization has worked at all so far. I hate to say this, but there are certain people who will always be beyond help and you have to protect your family. My wife is a psychiatrist and she tells me about kids like this. The ones with shark eyes. The escalating behavior, it's only a matter of time before that child seriously harms you or one of the other children. First the pins and needles, now dropping babies at the ground. You have to wonder what comes next. You may want to explore avenues to have that child removed from your custody. Sounds like she needs to institutionalized permanently. I used to verbally bully a neighborhood kid. I think we were around 7 or 8 years old or so. She was deaf and therefore talked a bit weird. At one point we were being mean towards her and it got so bad she jumped on her bike to get away from us and she lost her balance and fell, chafing her chin and palms. She starts crying, and at the same time laughing, but also panic and remorse on our side ensued. Not long after I got home, her mother called mine and my mum was very upset and angry with me. She said she was taking me to the toy store and told me to bring my pocket money and buy this girl a gift as an apology. Also, I had personally go to her house, ring the bell, come in, gift her the present and say I'm sorry, that it was hurtful what I did and would never do it again. I remember feeling so bad. I cried harder than she did when she fell off her bike earlier that afternoon. I was so ashamed of myself and horrified that my mum was so mad at me. The girl asked me why I did this to her and I just could not answer the question. I just wept like a baby on my own mother's lap, mumbling I'm sorry between sobs. For sure my parents taught me a lesson. You felt shame, which can be good. Shame is a powerful motivator for change. I was acquainted with a bully early on in elementary school. The way too aggressive type. I remember my other friends and I incidentally had similar stories of the bully trying to drown us in the local pool. He would punch kids all the time for no reason, and was extremely defensive, and mentally weak, even for an 8-year-old. Despite it all, his parents were very nice, but spoiled him a fair amount. One day, on the first day of school that year, he was gone and nobody knew what happened. We assumed he moved away until 6 years later. My friends and I were all playing soccer at the park across from the bully's house when suddenly we all spotted the bully atop his backyard play structure, fighting a younger man with a toy lightsaber. We all then came to the consensus that he had been sheltered for the past 6 years and most likely never left the house, which I guess is one way to deal with a bully. Sounds more like he was possibly on the autistic spectrum and his parents decided him being in public school wasn't good for him or the other students. Doubt they were locking him up in their basement, never letting him leave the house lol. I'm still waiting for his victim to do a training montage and smack him in the nose right in front of the cute but quirky girl. It's the only way bullies ever learn. Plot twist, cute but quirky girl is the bully. A bully is someone who attains their success through robbing another person of their positive emotions, whether through physical or psychological violence. Bullies are high-functioning people who are well aware of when a potential victim is vulnerable. This is why bullies only ever pick the vulnerable. Bullying is a behavioral pattern that is learned from parents. Usually, one parent bullies their partner and the children, while the partner simply accepts what is occurring and allows or encourages it. Bullying continues simply because people don't stand up to them. As anecdotal evidence, when I was about 15, I was bullied by a boy who also was seen as a leading peer, and also bullied others. He attacked me, pushed me against a wall, in a stairwell, and held a razor blade against my throat, close enough to draw blood. I felt threatened enough that I kneed him in the balls, punched elbowed him in the face and pushed him down the stairs. He cried like a little bitch. I got in trouble with the school, but never again was bullied by him, or any other bullies, actually, but still, I'd rather have not experienced 5 or 6 years of being bullied. I got in trouble with the school. Did he ever get in trouble? Eventually, but only because he called in a hoax bomb scare from a phone box next to the school, with multiple witnesses. Not a parent yet, but I took a dip into bullying for a bit. For the most part, I was the one everyone picked on, for no real reason other than I behaved differently than pretty much everyone else. I was near the bottom of the totem pole, but they considered one lower than me, a rather plump kid by the name of Matt. I saw the other kids bullying him and making fun of him. I was feeling bitter that day and said something about him when his back was turned. The popular kids loved it. For a week or two, I continued seeking this praise. The praise of being an asshole. I don't remember the exact turning point, but one day I reflected upon myself. I thought, what am I doing? Eventually, I started seeking amends with him. He was very forgiving once I apologized, and we even became friends for the next few years. We ended up going to different high schools, but we even ran into each other when I went to a choir contest his school was hosting. We talked for hours. I'm glad I stopped when I did, because at the end of the day, an oversized belly is worlds better than an oversized ego any day. TLDR, was a bully to a kid to win approval, but changed attitudes and became friends with him instead. I am a parent but of only a 4-year-old. But I was a huge bully in high school and I'm such an idiot it never even dawned on me until I was like maybe 21-22. I did horrible stuff just for laughs, but I made it a priority to personally apologize to everyone formally and in person since then. It's one of my highest priorities as a father to ensure my son embraces everyone as a friend when he gets older. I was a bully in middle school and high school and was bullied as well. I never saw myself as a bully because I was constantly picked on and made fun of and didn't realize how many people's feelings I was hurting. It honestly took a trip to the office freshman year for me to come face to face with the fact that I was making other people feel bad about themselves. My mom sat me down and reminded me of my insecurities and how I used to come home and cry. She told me if I wanted to make other people hate me like I hated my bullies, then I should keep on doing what I'm doing. She also whooped me. I made reparations and try to be better than I am. I have a tough mom. I'm an elementary teacher and I can tell you that when kids were actual bullies, their parents tended to blame everyone else in the class and blindly defend their own child. I've been lucky to have only dealt with 2-3 kids who I would say were actually bullies in my 10 years of teaching so far. Most kids are sweet and kind at heart, and some just need extra support figuring out how to interact with others to get the attention they crave in a positive way. Interestingly, reflecting on the major bullies from my teaching, all of their parents had one big thing in common: support of the same 2016 presidential candidate. I had all of these kids before 2016. While we live in an area that went heavily for the other candidate, I know of their support through Facebook and lawn signs. The most difficult kid and biggest bully I ever taught was the child of 2 police officers. Not even remotely surprising. I found out he was a bully before he was my child, because he bullied me so I ducked his mom and married her. Need more info? Not a parent, but thought I would share anyways. As a kid I had already started to understand why bullies are the way they are. Some kids just seem to get it or they don't. I was bullied for a long time as a kid, and I just continued to try and be friendly to them and show love towards them. And eventually I guess I was doing the right thing because it seemed to wear off on them. They became less angry and started to become more interactive and friendly. And now some of them are my closest friends almost 10 years later. I even got to see what their home life was like. And it always was lack of attention or lack of care. And sometimes the parent knew about the bully and didn't think it was a problem. Admittedly, even some of the parents were asses. I'm the end. Most of the parents won't react. It's usually the kid who has to figure it out, sadly. Hopefully some are lucky to get help, love from where they need it before too much damage is done. Many parents of bullies would not answer. Many support it because they think their children and family are simply better than everyone else. And they teach their kids to think that too. Hi, I'm 13 years old. I have anger issues. I take meds now. When I was in kindergarten, I did not take meds yet and a lot of the time I got really angry. I had a bad teacher, in my opinion. I kinda bullied other kids in my class and I feel bad for it because I still go to school with most of the kids. You're doing well because at the very least you understand that you have anger issues, that your medication helps with those issues, and that you feel bad about what you did and want to do better now. There's a lot of adults who wouldn't understand even half of that. It takes guts to try and be a better person. You're doing good, kid. Just keep trying your best and being open with yourself and you'll go far. I was a big time bully. When I was growing up it was hostile. Regular physical beatings and violence, especially the glorification of violence, was common. My brother tried to be that to me. He would start fights and throw the first punch and I would just kick the poop out of him. Then I would get beat for it. There is no one punch for one punch in this world. The person who wins the fight decides how it ends. That's life. In school I would only choose fighting levels that were in my favor. If I were smarter, that's how I would play. If I could kick their ass, that's what I would do, with a plan to get away with it and play the victim. These are all learned behaviors, I believe. What works is always going to be what wins. That's what my sister is doing to my nephew. She smacks the poop out of him, yells and talks super aggressive because she doesn't want him to take it. And when he fights back, she hits him harder and really brings out the nasty because she doesn't like him turning on her. Damned if he does. Damned if he don't. Thing is, he's only 3, and he's bit and smacked my daughter several times. But my sister just laughs and says he did good because we're white and my sister is black. My sister once tried to beat me up for telling my nephew that when he bit me, I was really upset, and it hurt. And could he apologize? She literally came at me in front of all the kids and started wailing on me. It's no surprise or unexpected how this little boy is going to turn out. If that kid is only 3, it is your duty to call child protection. My parents realized my youngest sister was a bully when she was like 6, and now she's 16 and they still haven't done anything about it. Not so much bullying, but being abrasive in online gaming chats. With everything locked down, I've been very happily able to spend more time with both of my sons. My youngest, 15, is very competitive when it comes to online gaming. Currently Rocket League, but it's been Fortnite etc in the past. So I'm at my desk and he's at his, and I hear some fairly toxic stuff that he's saying to teammates one night. I told him game time was over, shut it down. Proceeded to have a front porch talk about what being a good teammate is all about and how supporting the team was always a better idea than dragging people down or making them ashamed. He was pretty responsive. Logged back into Discord and apologized to the guys gals he'd been teamed with, and we haven't had an incident since then. I'm very proud of him, if you can't tell. Not my story. Don't remember source, so be warned it may not be credible. Anyways, it said that a mom caught her kid bullying another kid who had cancer. So, she shaved her kid's hair. 10/10 IQ move. Mayo. Where the hell do you think those kids learned it? Man, reading this thread brings back bitter memories of fighting with my brothers when we were younger that make me feel really guilty and sad. When I was a kid, I was prone to anger, and I took it out on my younger brothers a couple times that really stand out in my head. We all have great relationships with one another now, but sometimes I get hit by a vivid memory of making one of them cry, and it really hurts to think about. I actually brought it up with them one of the times it was bothering me, and they forgave me and said they didn't really remember. So at least there's that, but I wish I could forget. My parents knew I was trouble since the beginning of school but never really gave me much except a slap on the wrist. The final straw was when I was in 4th grade. My dad got called into the school after the principal told him a special education needs kid refused to come to school because I've been bullying him so much. I got a real good beating then, and my parents were so ashamed they decided to transfer schools. Lo and behold, they chose a French immersion school as my next school. Without knowing a single word in French, I became shy and introverted at the new school just enough to be no longer a complete jackass. IDK, a beating always seems like a counterintuitive punishment for bullying, but whatevs. I am pretty impressed with the idea of switching schools to the French immersion school. Taking the big fish and making him a small fish was smart, and you learned another language. Got a bumper sticker that says, "My kid can beat up your kid." Oh, Doyle rules. I married one, but a reformed one of that makes sense. Known each other through K-12 school. In high school he was athletic and popular. Picked on kids who were out or perceived as gay and held some racist views. Didn't know all of this until after we graduated since we ran in different circles. Definitely would have been one of the ones he would have picked on. I'm a stubborn person, and when we got together he'd voice his viewpoints and I'd challenge him on them. Called him out on poop-tea behavior. I've helped him realize those viewpoints he had were wrong or based out of ignorance. It sounds so bad in a sense, but even his sister has praised me for forcing him to realize he was an He's even now calling his dad out for bullying our nieces and nephews for their intercausality. His behavior in school was based on a homophobic and racist father who abused his children. He also was hungry a lot of times and just had an overall crappy childhood. I'm proud of who he's become, and I know he's going to be a good dad who is going to raise his kids to be better than he was. I read this as parents of butterflies, so I came to share my story, but oh well. I got pulled aside at my toddler's day school when he was 2 because he was hitting. He was an only child, so I never noticed anything weird with his interaction with other kids. I kept telling him not to hit his friends at school. One day when I picked him up, I saw him grab a kid by the shirt and repeatedly slam him against the wall. I was like, what are you doing? You're making him upset. Why would you do that? I keep it in mind. Kind of coach him. He's older, and I was asked by his school what kind of teacher he should get, and I said a strict one would be better. He mostly does fine in school so far. The question insinuates that parents of bullies are actually good parents. Usually bullies come from parents that are very bad parents, hence the need for the child to be a bully. You make too many assumptions. I've been teaching for over 20 years. Girl bullies especially come from all kinds of families. One of my friends is dealing with this right now with her 6-7-year-old who is also on the spectrum. She's got her kid hooked on someone called Jojo Siwa, who has a lot of anti-bullying stuff. A lot of the bullying came from her school environment, and she must have decided better you than me, and took the initiative. So her mom is homeschooling until her daughter's social skills are more sympathetic and in tune with her age group. My older brother was a bully to us. Every time we would tell our mom, she would scold us for being tattletales and there would be zero consequences. Then he grew up to become a homeless, jobless heroin addict who abused every girlfriend he had, and my parents were raising his daughter. My mom likes to romanticize our childhood, and every time we bring up the fact that he has always been a poopty person, she is like, well, why didn't you tell me? I could have done something if I only knew. If your kid's a bully, it's usually because you're a poopty parent, and poopty parents don't take responsibility or care. I completely agree. It's not a valid excuse, but it is a reason. Every bully I've met had troubles at home. It wasn't always parents not paying attention. Sometimes it was toxic parents paying too much attention, so they got criticized to the extent they took it out at school. Bullying is often more of a dysfunctional attempt at socializing than it is real sadism or manipulation. It depends on which bullying problems you're looking at, of course. But lots of it, like harassment, teasing, targeting peers that are perceived as weaker, is actually an attempt to force camaraderie with others by creating an us versus them environment. I know this is about bullying, but I can't stop thinking about the parallels between your explanation and current forces in the racial political climate. Is it really that simple? And the grown-ups are still just playing out these childish games? Bullies? Hun. Yeah, it can get even more weirdly simple if you dig into other dysfunctional behaviors that almost everything links to either deficient or aberrant empathy skills. But you've definitely picked up on a piece of wisdom. Often when people are helped out of things like white supremacist groups, cults, or other insular groups that tend to lash out, they will talk about their real motivation to be there as a need for purpose and camaraderie. Us versus them is an intense force on the human psyche. You can see it in simpler stuff like PC versus console or skis versus snowboard. It creates that weird feeling of belonging, but the feeling is artificial. The other members of the KKK or whatever will definitely stab you in the back, and you sort of know it. That's why groups with less trustworthy members get more and more violent and partisan. The only way to get that sweet belonging high is to keep turning up the unifying hatred volume. You can see it in simpler stuff like PC versus console or skis versus snowboard. Skis versus snowboard is ducking vicious. I kind of want to read a Romeo and Juliet riff where they're both teen athletes at the Winter Olympics, because it's that level of hatred between the two factions. Or the parents themselves are bullies and so won't even notice other bullies. It's called a self-fulfilling prophecy and happens a lot with kids. You believe that he's a bully and people tell him he is and soon he believes it and feels like he can't change. Edited to change typo. Happens with adults too. Especially if the person who is negatively defining stereotyping you is someone you look up to. Bro, you actually watched the whole video. I'd give you a high five if I was a human. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe for more great content. See you next time.